Hi, I'm Sarah Ray and I'm the editor at Smart Cities World. Welcome to today's webinar on how the City of San Diego is building a scalable smart city along with key partners. After the short presentations, we'll move into a Q&A session. We encourage you to send your questions in. On the control panel on your screen, you'll see a chat box. Write your questions in that box and press send, and we'll aim to try and answer as many of those questions as we can today. The session is being recorded, and so after the webinar finishes, we'll send out an email with a link so that you can watch it again at your convenience. So let's get started. On today's webinar, I'm going to be joined by Arwa Saeed, the Project Officer at City of San Diego, Austin Ash, Co-founder and General Manager, Intelligent Cities at Current powered by GE, and Jason Anderson, the President and CEO at Clean Tech San Diego. So at Smart Cities World, we recently worked with the City of San Diego and its partners to create a detailed profile of San Diego's smart city ethos, goals, achievements, and challenges. On today's webinar, we're going to look at some of the highlights of that report, but I'd encourage you to download it as well for further detail, and you can see the link on the screen there. San Diego is growing fast. It has 1.4 million residents, but this is forecast to rise to 1.95 million by 2050. The city has one of the largest homeless populations in the United States, and the mayor has set some of the most ambitious emissions reductions targets in the world. San Diego's smart city goals include halving greenhouse gas emissions by 2035, getting traffic flowing better, improving public safety, and using existing infrastructure much more efficiently. To do this, San Diego is deploying the world's largest city IoT sensor platform with Current by GE, transforming its street lighting into a connected digital infrastructure. The real-time sensor data delivered from across the city will be used to develop applications that tackle pressing challenges and improve the city for its citizens. So with that background, I'm now going to hand over to Jason Anderson, the President and CEO of Clean Tech San Diego, and he's going to set the context of this work a little more. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you, Sarah. Good morning. So my name is Jason Anderson, President and CEO of Clean Tech San Diego. You can advance to the next slide. Clean Tech San Diego is a nonprofit business association that was actually launched about 12 years ago to really accelerate the development and deployment of clean technology in the greater San Diego region. When we think about San Diego, we're the entire county of San Diego, so the southernmost portion of California, sitting right alongside the Mexico border. Our industry is really focused on the benefits that it provides to both the economy and the environment. And we've seen over the years the industry grow in San Diego. We're now number 4 in the country in terms of our clean technology leadership. And as Sarah mentioned, our city of San Diego has passed a pretty aggressive and progressive climate action plan, and the other cities in the region are following. When we were launched 12 years ago, it was really when AB 32 was being passed by the state of California, which was our global climate change legislation. We wanted to make sure that as the state was moving forward in renewable energy policy, that we at the local level were able to receive the economic benefits from that. So we've been working over the years with over 100 local businesses, universities, governments, and other nonprofits really to advance the clean technology development and deployment in our region. About 6 years ago, we launched the Smart Cities San Diego Collaborative, which is shown on the next slide, to really help our cities work to think about how they're deploying IoT technologies to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, create more urban connectivity, increase water and energy efficiency, all while driving economic growth. This program first launched in 2011, focused on the development and deployment of electric vehicle charging stations throughout our region, but it's now become a regional collaboration where cities are working with private sector companies to advance their smart cities goals. Clean Tech San Diego is a nonprofit trade association, works as a convener to bring both our public city partners and our private sector partners together to work on projects or to identify projects that will help meet the needs of all San Diegans. Next slide. The city of San Diego, as Sarah alluded, has some pretty aggressive climate goals as part of their climate action plan. These climate action plans are really working to drive smart cities projects throughout our region. The city of San Diego, as we continue to grow and our population continues to diversify, is now looking at smart cities from an equity perspective and really thinking about how to develop a smart cities roadmap from communities of concern or disadvantaged communities in our region. So we are working right now with the city of San Diego and others to prepare a community roadmap that's really focused on the inclusion of some of the lower income neighborhoods in our region, and starting there, building out the technology infrastructure to support those neighborhoods, and then building it from there. What's really great about what's happening in San Diego is the project that Austin will talk about will soon be coming into those neighborhoods, and we'll be able to provide services to a part of San Diego that technically has been disadvantaged for quite some time. But the city is moving forward and forward thinking about how to include those neighborhoods as we start to roll out new technologies for our region. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Sarah.
Good morning. This is Arwa Saeed from the city of San Diego. And I will start today with just giving you an overview with the city's project for smart lighting. In 2015, the city of San Diego started an LED lighting retrofit project to save energy and maintenance, during which we discovered that we actually can use some of the savings to move the IoT or digital infrastructure world forward. So we did a technology pilot with 25 digital sensors, and we determined that we will have approximately $2.4 million per year in energy savings. With the applications of these savings, we were able to secure financing and acquire low interest loans that allowed pre-negotiated prices to meet the city's finances practices and the city return on investment requirement. Once financing was secured, the city pre-purchased some of the long lead time in new technology items, the digital infrastructure sensors. As for the LED lighting and fixture labor, including the sensor installation, were procured via a city multiple award design build contract, public RFQ. It's an internal process. And this process actually includes a city can create evaluation scoring system that allows the city to select bidders based on the overall value of that contract. This allows the city to select basically what they want based on the lower bid value, but not based on the lower bid value. It's what's best for the city. We can look at the various bidders and score them and pick the best for the project and not necessarily go with the lowest bid for that aspect. Initial contract included, so actually looking at the numbers, included initially the contract included 5,200 LED light fixtures and 32 sensors or digital devices. We currently have approximately 80% of the fixtures installed and 90% are activated and commissioned. Next slide.
Sorry, we're just having a small technical issue. Austin, if you just click anywhere on the screen, you'll have control of the slides.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. My name is Austin Ash. I'm the co-founder and general manager of the Smart Cities business at Current, powered by GE. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with Jason and Arwa, our partners, to talk about our journey for helping transform San Diego into the smart city that it is. It was really built upon the premise of, as Jason was talking about, of San Diego wanting to be a smart city several years ago and wanting to maintain that leadership position globally. And when we first started talking to the city about what their smart cities goals were, it really became clear that there were a number of goals that were very, very ambitious. Things like helping connect departments, city departments together, helping build up low-income, disadvantaged neighborhoods, as Jason was alluding to, helping prepare for population increases in the city. Lots of big goals, right? And how do you do that in a sustainable way and a scalable way across the city? And when we started looking at all of those avenues and how we get there, the one common factor in all of those variables was this question around data. And as the Chief Sustainability Officer of San Diego, Cody, said, she said it best, data is the new bacon. And while that might be a little bit humorous, we love that saying because it is so true, because data is everywhere, it goes with everything, and it really does bring about an enhancement to anything that you do with it. And so when we looked at tackling these big goals, the types of data that were needed was very interesting as we distilled it down into things like historical versus real-time data. There's a big difference between the two, right? You can collect data over time and store it so you can map out trends and see what's happening, but there's a whole bunch of new use cases that come out of data when it's real-time at your fingertips based on events that change day to day, minute by minute, even block by block or foot by foot. Ubiquitous data. So when we talk about scalability of data, how do you get data that isn't just coming from one or two places that you then extrapolate out and make some assumptions? How do you get real data around all the cross-sectional areas of the city to give you a true blueprint of what is happening? Can the data be open? You know, San Diego was awarded the Sunshine Award for their open data platform not long ago. And so building on an open data platform and making sure that that data is actionable, not just by city officials, but by citizens that want the data as well. City-owned data is really, really important. As we looked into these goals, cities are in the best position based on their community needs and their privacy policies to really control and manage this data. So it needed to be city-owned. And then I think I mentioned cross-departmental access, but how do you take, you know, a complex organization like a city and give all the department heads and all of the officers like ARWA in those departments data that they need to make decisions every day, but do it in an efficient way where it's shared across? And when you start thinking about how to tackle all those goals and set up data in that way, you can start to imagine it's pretty challenging. And so what we decided to do together was take a look at the most prevalent infrastructure in the city, which is their street lights. As Arwa was describing the mechanics of the contract, we really looked at these street lighting assets as the most valuable real estate in the city. The street lights are ubiquitous, right? They're every 200 feet. Approximately in the city, there's about 65,000 of them in the city of San Diego. They have power running to them, which creates a very unique opportunity to power up something like a light fixture or even a sensor device. And then number three is the elevation. When you think about a street light and how tall it is in the city, they're about 30 feet or 10 meters above the ground, which is a very interesting location when you think about real estate. And so when we started working with the city on what that infrastructure could be, we decided that, you know, today that infrastructure provides a great service to the community by giving it light, which provides, you know, safety and security for the city, but also could be repurposed. And so we developed a solution that actually repurposes that infrastructure into digital infrastructure that is extensible, meaning it can be used for more than just street lighting, Kind of like your smartphone is a lot more than a phone. Now this streetlight is a lot more than a streetlight. It's open and interoperable, so it's very flexible in what it can do and when it can do it. It's aesthetically pleasing, meaning it blends into the streetscape. You don't have a lot of antennas and wires and a lot of things hanging off the poles like you might see in some cities. This is a very integrated solution. Obviously has to be secure from a cybersecurity perspective, making sure that all that data is accessible only by people that the city have allowed access to it. And then of course efficient, right? Just the overall notion that we want this to be something that we put in place one time and can be used over and over and over again. So when we developed the solution, we took an example of the smartphone. And what you all might remember from Steve Jobs' unveiling of the iPhone in 2007, making sure credit is given where credit is due, he showed this paradigm of the world of connected devices getting integrated together, right? And he told the story about how a new phone was going to be launched along with a new PDA working device, along with a new MP3 player, along with a device that could take take pictures just like a camera would every day. Something that could play games, something that could help navigate you throughout the city, like a GPS device, right? And play videos or movies or watch television series, even use it as a flashlight. And when you put all of that together, all of those devices that everyone was using, and that was just 2007, that wasn't that long ago, here's this all-in-one device that can do all of that and more due to the application store that would be unlocked on top of it. And building on that concept, we took a look at San Diego's infrastructure and we said, well, what if we could combine sensors that the city needs, like induction loops that count cars and help with traffic signal timing, and parking pucks that are in the ground tracking where there's open parking spaces, and gunshot detection devices that are listening for active shooters to help reduce gun violence, and cameras that are helping provide a public safety blanket in case something goes wrong, the police and first responders can respond, and weather devices that are installed, and all of these types of devices. And we really came up with a similar platform for them that said, look, you can repurpose your streetlights into this all-in-one device that will solve a multitude of challenges, extract an enormous amount of data, and unlock an app store to help you solve some of those challenges. And that's where we came up with CityIQ. And what CityIQ does in San Diego is it extracts this data, which I'll show you in a minute. It brings it up to the cloud, and then it makes the data available through an open data platform via API, which allows for software developers to grab the data and build unique applications that can solve challenges like traffic and parking and pedestrian safety. And anyone can get access to this data that the city allows, right? People like entrepreneurs or incubators, even the internal departments like the performance and analytics, or the city's partners like Exact or CivicSmart or Genetech. And all of this data and all of these applications essentially get customized to build out the city's app store. Now, when I talk about data and this all-in-one device, when we start talking about IoT and the future of technology, it's really hard not to mention machine learning and artificial intelligence, because that is exactly the technology that powers this. And it's finally gotten to the point where it's cost-effective and scalable in a way that can add significant value to a city. And so I'm going to give you a couple examples of how this machine learning technology really works. So when you can imagine a street light where it sits, that real estate, all these cars are passing by it every day. And what we're able to do is, without collecting any private data, right, any PII, personal identifiable information, we're able to extract things like vehicle counts, type of car, vehicle speeds, very interesting granular data that the city has never had 24 access to before, and now we can get it to them almost anywhere at any time. Similar data with pedestrians, right? Where are the pedestrians? Where do they spend their time? Where do they put themselves most at risk with intersections and potential near misses with cars? So now we can extract this type of data. Similarly with cars that are parking, right? Where are there open parking spaces? How often do parking spaces get turned over? Imagine just a simple application here on your phone where you could know where there's an open parking space on your phone, right? You're not driving around the block 15 times looking for a space. You just know exactly where you're going, and that means you're not wasting gasoline, you're not emitting extra carbon into the air, and you're reducing traffic congestion. And so when you start thinking of the power of this data and all of the applications and outcomes, and you start putting it all together, you can quickly see that a platform like this can help a city put their finger on the pulse of the city. And as the city evolves over time, whether that be minute by minute, day by day, week by week, or year by year, this platform will evolve with those changes and offer the city and its citizens new services that will make it smart and make it more efficient. And it's not just the optical machine learning, there's also acoustical machine learning that we can do on the edge device that's powered by Intel and the data brought up to the cloud through AT&T's network. And that is things like gunshot detection and even things like glass breaking, or what about just the quiet areas in a city? Wouldn't it be nice to know where those are if you want to go for a walk or a run and you had an app that helped you go around all the construction, things like that. Just unbelievable how much data we can collect and all of the potential use cases that come out of it. And that leads us to the question of, all this data is great, but where does it go? How does it actually get transformed into value for the city? And that's where we talk about the application economy. Just like with the smartphone, all of these applications started getting built. Well, there's an application community out there that does smart city apps today, and they've been doing it for 10, some for 2, some for 10, some for 15, 20 years. And all of these software companies on this page here are partners of ours that are able to take the sensor data, transform it, and deliver it in the form of a use case, right? Someone like Civic Smart, for example, can help optimize parking. Someone like Genetec can help optimize public safety for a police department, or ShotSpotter can help deliver gunshot detection. Folks like Breezometer can help bring about environmental studies that help cities plan and reduce carbon footprint and increase mobility. Just an incredible, powerful app store. And there's these companies and more that are coming to the marketplace and helping build out the future of the app economy. But it's not just professional developers. What we're also seeing is this movement of local software developers that want to get involved and help build out the apps of the future. We call these innovation apps. And on this page, I'm going to call out the background of the page, because it's a very, very special event that we held at one of the universities in San Diego. And there were about 1,200 students and entrepreneurs and folks that wanted to come and be a part of the Smart City solution that came out on a weekend and actually spent an entire weekend building applications. So they spent their time, their energy, their creativity to come up with a suite of apps using CityIQ data and other data from the San Diego Open Data Portal to build out these really fascinating applications that could be used tomorrow if you wanted to. And so there's a whole movement here to unlock the creativity and the energy of the local communities in the city, and San Diego is leading the way here. We've seen approximately 50 apps, that's 50 apps built just by the local community themselves, which of course creates jobs and helps build out that digital education for everyone in the city. As Jason alluded to, the low income and disadvantaged folks, they can all come and be a part of this. So I'm going to take a moment here and actually pass it back to Arwa to kind of recap what some of those community goals were going into this. Arwa?
Thanks, Austin. These are some of the best practices and lessons learned from our deployment for this technology. It's very important to have clear goals, to set priorities and inform all decisions about the project's design, financing, and implementation. Usually the communities are different, they have different goals, and setting up workshops and working with the communities, try and identify these goals and work towards achieving them is actually very critical and important. It just connects everybody. And consider the value of doing both LED retrofit and sensor deployment at the same time. San Diego estimated $30 million in cost avoidance with a reduced number of truck rolls and other installation costs. This is no-brainer. By rolling a truck to one location to do installations of light fixtures and sensors, we can increase savings and in efficiencies of operations for the utilities. Transform a single-use lighting network to multi-application digital infrastructure. This is, again, the City of San Diego Smart Lighting deployment transformed the existing assets, like Austin said, which is a perfect infrastructure, into a digital network that the City of San Diego is able to advance multiple community objectives. This is actually very important to separate the procurement of the technology and the procurement of the installations of the technology. Lessons learned, it takes time. Technology requires long lead time and technical review. And this, at the same time, it will be good to work in parallel on securing the procurement of labor. That expedites this process. Also, for scoring for responses to smart cities project solicitation, consider the following: weighing 60% of the outcome and 40%. And this is the outcome. Again, this is a lot of data. The potential is unlimited. The outcome is huge. It's beneficial, and the technology with this open kind of goals don't want to be stuck. You don't want to be stuck in a cost box where, rather than focusing on the benefits and what this data could do to us, it just I mean, cost is definitely important. When we work with utilities, we all understand the importance of cost and funding and so on. But we also want to focus on the importance of the outcome from this technology as well. Next slide, please. And speaking of the outcomes, we have some, the City of San Diego, we had some goals that we wanted to accomplish that are related to public safety, transportation, and Vision Zero. On the public safety, for example, video on demand for situational awareness and crime investigation has actually kind of risen to the top of the priority for the City of San Diego, and it's really a big advantage. For transportation, parking is always a problem in San Diego. San Diego has a lot of tourist attractions, and it's really, this is a big benefit to the citizens and for the tourists. We're also working towards a Vision Zero that, again, it's really, we have a lot of pedestrian traffic, and we wanted to understand how we can help reduce traffic and pedestrian accidents. So this is really a perfect goal for the city in order to also focus on helping with the climate action plan and reducing traffic and so on. So these goals are outcomes are really important for the City of San Diego. After all, what city doesn't want to be concerned with the public safety or the transportation or these goals? These are really great for all utilities and cities around the world. Austin, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, I think that was well said, Arwa. And when it comes to this platform, working with our partners like Intel and AT&T, we knew that these were going to be the use cases that would provide value on day one. But the way the architecture of the system is built is it's extensible to other use cases in the future. And so what we've learned about public safety so far by working with the city, for example, is there's a couple of key needs that they're gonna want next year and then the year after that, right? And so the platform is developed to be extensible in that regard, where we can just do a over-the-air update with software, and we don't have to go back to that poll. As Ara was explaining, going to that poll one time is one of the more expensive parts of the project, but just being able to manage the system remotely and update the software over the air to be able to take on new transportation use cases, new public safety use cases, et cetera, is an extremely valuable part of the platform, and we're looking forward to sharing some of those use cases and learnings as we get down the road. And along those lines, one of the things we wanted to share with you all are some of the other use cases that we've been talking about with the city, specifically when it comes to on-street parking. I kind of mentioned the use case around an application for citizens, but as we've learned talking to the city, there's other departments that could utilize that data too, like the streets division, who does the cleaning of the streets. Sometimes those vehicles get impaired by folks that are parked at the wrong times of the day on those streets, and so we can optimize their routes. And when you combine citizens finding open parking spaces, you combine the streets vehicles being able to clean the streets more efficiently, more regularly, helping identify cars that are broken down or abandoned on the side of the road, you can very quickly see how we can get to a reduction of congestion by 30%. We also want to build a digital twin of the city. Now that we've got our finger on the pulse and a very large cross section, we want to figure out, what if we did this here? What if we optimize the traffic signals like one of our partners, PTV, does? What would that do to congestion here? How can we take this data and understand origin, destination? How can we understand how Uber and Lyft are utilizing the streets and dropping people off and picking people up, right? There's a whole world that is evolving that the city really needs to be able to understand to be able to respond accordingly and make sure those services are provided. High-risk intersections is a very important part of Vision Zero, which is the goal of reducing or eliminating the number of incidents where pedestrians and bicyclists get struck by a motor vehicle. Dynamically changing traffic signals, right? Mentioned that as part of the digital twin. So once you plan for it, actually changing it is the next step. For example, in the city, we've looked at 12 smart traffic signals, and I've already calculated that just with those 12 smart signals, you can reduce transit time by almost 25%. And the way you do that is by eliminating stops and goes and stops and goes. Just these 12 signals, we're able to reduce stops by 53%, right? So you can imagine what happens when you scale that across the city using sensor data, what could happen. We mentioned evidence-based crimes, right? Sometimes detectives don't have everything that they need, but if we can give them that data, then it can help them solve a crime faster and bring justice to citizens quicker and more swiftly. Bicycle planning is a big deal. What Cody and Arwa teach us all the time is about reducing carbon footprint as a means of having citizens utilize bicycles more, right? So how can we get more routes planned, safer routes planned and implemented so people start using their bicycles instead of cars? How can this data be applied to homeless population? Where are they? Are they in trouble? How can we help them? Is a very important part of this. And then, of course, removing obstacles during urban planning is always a key consideration, especially when you start talking about multiple departments trying to solve a problem from different angles. If they all have a common data set, then we can improve accessibility for the impaired community. So pretty broad goals. And the last thing I'll share with you is sort of the payback when it comes to this. Arwa already mentioned the energy savings that comes from a system like this. So that part of it is the low-hanging fruit that helps set up the infrastructure. But there's a lot more to it. There's cost avoidance. When I gave the example of the iPhone, from now going forward, I can't think of a single time that I'm going to need to buy a GPS device separately from a camera and a flashlight and a gaming device and a television and a phone, right? I've got my smartphone that gives me all of that now. And so the city doesn't have to worry anymore about trying to procure all of these disparate point source systems and trying to figure out how to integrate them together to build out this scalable smart city sensor need, right? They've got it all in one device ready to go. There's also some cost recovery through new business models and data monetization that the city is exploring, not to mention the indirect financial impact of just igniting the app economy and creating jobs and having the local business community being able to leverage this data to build more business in their local neighborhoods. And then, of course, the social impact, right? Just having the ability to find new differentiated abilities to attract visitors, all the civic pride that comes into having a system like this where everyone is sharing in the same goals and experiencing all the same services together, right? This system doesn't just go downtown in one area or just an affluent area. It's going to go everywhere, as Jason said. And so we want to track and measure the economic growth and wellness that comes out of this as well. And so with that, I'm going to pass it back to Sarah for the Q&A session.
Thank you, Austin and Awa, and thank you, Jason, for your presentation too. So just to remind people that you can use the console to send in your questions. We've had quite a few questions in, so we're going to start on those straight away. So Awa, the first question is for you. If you could tell us a little bit more about the procurement process for procuring a solution like this. Was it a different approach for the city, or?
You know, working in the utilities, usually procurement processes, they are lengthy, and there is a long time for the review and the routing process, and there are some criteria and limitations. The way the city went about this is that, well said, we used this, what we call it the MAC, which is, it's awarding basically putting out the bid for 5 contractors and picking up one contractor based on the best value and not necessarily the lowest bid. So that was an easier approach. It might seem limited in it, but actually it's not, because it's clear in the criteria. And it enabled the city to move forward faster on this process by using this procurement process rather than going through an all-city opening without this process. There are other options, but they tend to be lengthy.
Okay.
So this was a good way to go about it.
Okay, thank you for that. And related a little bit to that, if I could go back to you, Austin, you mentioned some of the features around cost avoidance, for example, but I just wondered if you could tell us a little bit more about how cities can make the business case for an initiative like this and of this size. Would it be through trials, for example, or can you give us a bit of insight into that?
Yeah, I think every city has different goals, and those goals are gonna look different today. They're gonna probably shift in 6 months from now and even 2 years from now, right? And so the first thing that a city wants to think about is, how do we set ourselves up for success today, but also in the future? And looking at extensibility and multi-use case systems, I think, is the most efficient and elegant way to be thinking about that and strategize around that. When you react to needs with point source solutions, what often happens is you end up solving one particular use case about 85 to 95% of the way, and then you learn that there's other use cases that you need to solve, but that system won't do it. So then you have to procure another system that will solve a use case about 80-90%. So what if you had a platform that could solve 100 to 200 use cases, right, at any given moment in time? That's what gives you the flexibility. And when you couple that with energy savings from LEDs and lighting controls, it becomes an incredibly attractive payback model, even from a simple payback perspective. And if you couple in financing on top of that, you can get really interesting business models that actually have self-funding aspects to it, like the way San Diego did it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. And Jason, there's a question for you, which is around engaging citizens around this type of initiative. So I guess, getting the message out about it and also engaging them with how it can impact their life. And if you have any thoughts on the work that you did there.
That's a great question. And if you go back to the slide that Ara was talking from, the 3 focus areas, in the background there, you noticed a big whiteboard and there were people writing on that whiteboard. The city actually put together a street light block party when this program was first being launched, so that the public could understand the benefits that they would receive from this program, but at the same time were able to also provide input on what they wanted to see. I think one of the exciting things about this project, and you probably noted as Austin and Ara were both speaking, is that this is really a partnership between GE and the city of San Diego, and GE did not come to the table with any prescribed notions of what they were going to deliver to the city, although they had some, but really were listening to the city and the residents on how they were going to develop a program and a product that met everyone's needs. So a lot of PR around it, making sure the public really understood how the data was going to be used, what type of information was being collected, and probably more importantly, what was not being collected. And so just engaging the public in that regard and doing that from the onset was really important, and I think a key component of the success of this project.
Mm-hmm. And related to that, Austin, you talked about the App Store vision and, this new data that the city will have that it didn't have before. But how do you then sort of engage people to come and use that data and, make things from it or understand what it means for them and how they can use it?
Yeah, I think it starts with San Diego's open data portal. Mm-hmm. And Maxim, the chief data officer, has done a phenomenal job building this out and getting it onto the website where anybody and everybody can come and grab a hold of. I think there's around 44 plus data sets already there today. And what we will do, working with Arwa and Jason, is we will do things like the hackathons that we showed on the page, and we'll engage with the entrepreneurial community, and we'll engage with the universities, and we will put out challenges to them, asking them for their ideas. And as those folks come to bring their newly enhanced software development skills, they will be the ones that help give us some of the answers to some of the tougher questions out there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So everyone who's presented has talked about the importance of the partnership aspect of this initiative. So not just the city, but all the partners we've mentioned today. Jason, you've been playing a key role there too, and I just wondered if you can share any sort of experiences or insights on how that all works. I mean, what are the challenges? What makes that work, and what can other cities and groups of partnerships take from that?
Yeah, I think, for us in San Diego, we're known as a region of collaboration. And so that having that kind of baseline was a great place for us to start. I think having an organization like Cleantech San Diego that kind of sat in the middle of this initially, we have no financial interest in any of this, just wanted to see the deployment successful, wanted to make sure the city was happy, that the private sector companies were happy that we're working on it. But creating kind of a safe space to talk about challenges with a project, talk about maybe changes, et cetera, was something that we were able to do early on. And just having, folks like Arwa and Austin, sitting at the table together and really working through this really created an area of collaboration for us, and the ability and the acceptance by Austin and Arwa to speak with other companies, other application providers that could potentially be a part of the solution was important as well, and hosting things like the hackathons, et cetera. So just getting everyone together and kind of having that kind of third party group like ours, facilitate a lot of those conversations, I think was really key to another part of this project being successful.
Mm-hmm. And at Clean Tech San Diego, obviously you're at the heart of this clean tech community in San Diego. So I just wondered whether you have any thoughts on the challenges of meeting such ambitious climate goals that the city of San Diego has set, because obviously more and more cities are trying to achieve these things. So I just wondered, what takeaways we can get from that.
Yeah, probably our biggest challenge now is meeting our 100% renewable energy goals. So that's a key component of our climate action plan.
Mm-hmm.
There's significant challenges with that, but I think with those challenges comes a significant amount of opportunities. The mayor has announced his path forward to meet that goal. The community, the business community that I represent, that Clean Tech San Diego represents, is willing to make sure the mayor is successful in that regard. So there's challenges, but I think there's a lot of opportunities, and I think it's important for, as public officials, as cities set these really challenging goals,
Mm-hmm.
that the private sector, the business community is behind them to help them reach those goals.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Austin, I wanted to briefly come back to you because you'd mentioned all the different use cases, so the ones that emerged first, all the possibilities. I just wondered if you have any thoughts on how cities can sort of prioritize those and find the highest impact ones and roll things out in a manageable way.
Yeah, I think that it's a combination of opportunistic events that come about. For example, when the Women's March happened in San Diego worked in partnership with the Port of San Diego, who has a similar system, and they brought their resources together to count the number of marchees and make sure there was a level of public safety provided for that. So there's a mix of opportunistic things like that, mm-hmm. combined with some of the cross-department collaboration and strategic initiatives that Arwa plans. So for example, she was able to help us bring together a bunch of the department directors in the city, and we sat down for a whole day and basically had a whiteboard session, as Jason was alluding to. It just said, look, what are the key priorities? What do we need to do to enable you to move fast on something or deliver a particular goal for the year? One example of the outcomes of that was the Get It Done app, mm-hmm. that San Diego built and deployed, that is sort of like a 311 type of application where citizens can go and they can be a part of entering information around potholes or other just general needs around the city. And so when you start digging into some of these initiatives, you can very quickly, as long as you have the right folks in the room and a good stance on leadership and a scalable system like this, you can bring a lot of things together to make things happen. Another example is, San Diego is currently #1 in the lowest average commute times among their peer cities. So they want to maintain that stance, right? So how do you reduce transit times? How do you reduce commute distances for folks? Those kinds of initiatives are coming to the forefront. And then I mentioned bicycle planning earlier. That has come up over and over and over again. So what we're going to do next year is open up a new analytic for them, just like those videos that we're playing that showed the cars and the people. But this time we're going to be detecting bicycles, and we're going to give them bicycle counts and bicycle speeds and bicycle trajectories and patterns of usage so that they can better plan for more bicycle usage and less carbon footprint emissions. Mm-hmm. So the only way you get that going is by bringing everyone together and sharing the goals and finding some common ground.
Mm-hmm. And in your presentation, you also briefly mentioned about opportunities around data monetization, and that seems like a sort of emerging area in cities. I just wondered if you could say a little bit more about the possibilities there, perhaps.
I think that sort of becomes a phase 2. Mm-hmm. And the reason I say that is cities are, especially San Diego, right? They're very focused on getting the infrastructure in, getting the first applications and use cases deployed, making sure that all the departments in the city are getting value from the data. Now, when it comes to monetization, since the city owns the data, they will be in a position to do that should there be opportunity for that. But that is that will come later on in the process.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of equate it to getting records from a tax collector or tax assessor, right? I can go to a city office and ask for records, and that data may be open, but it's not necessarily free, right? So there's a mix there, and having a city be able to provide a new service or a new service to citizens for free versus at a cost is something that they're going to work through in their business model.
Mm-hmm.
And I would certainly turn that question to Arwa if she wanted to add any details to that.
Yeah, I agree. I think you covered it all, Jason, so I have really nothing to add. Thank
you for that. I did just have one final question, which Austin, I think you might be able to answer too. So a lot of the use cases that we've mentioned so far are around safety, and we've had a question in about how smart cities and initiatives such as this could tackle the challenges that we're seeing around terrorism these days. Do you have any thoughts on that?
That's a big one. I mean, I think that there are a number of certainly there are a number of conversations happening with the city around this topic, especially San Diego, who is is a border city, border town. It's got the port. It's a very strategic location in the United States, and when you have a mix of border patrol, the port, Homeland Security, and the local PD department all working together to secure that area, it really does become a cross-regional strategy and plan. And so Jason Anderson and the Tech San Diego team is actually helping facilitate a lot of those conversations. So without sharing too much, because some of that is still behind closed doors, there are definitely a lot of opportunities for us to help reduce or at least react quickly to situations like that.
Okay. Thank you for that. So we're nearly out of time now, but Arwa, I just wanted to end with some input from you really on, you've done this great foundational work. I just wondered what's next now for San Diego next year? What can we look out for coming next?
I think for us, we have demonstrated the value of this project and how the data could be used, and what benefits and use cases we can get out of this. We're really looking at an inclusive, connected cities roadmap. Basically, how can we create a strategy for smart cities projects rather than an ad hoc application, and start with our most disadvantaged communities first. I think that's important. Again, continue to work with the community and startup opportunities for businesses to how to utilize this data and bring in more use cases is something that we're looking forward to and we're currently working on. So the potential is really unlimited and goes beyond what the goals that we identified, and we're just keeping our vision and our view open for how we can utilize this data to the benefit of the city of San Diego.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thanks to our speakers, Jason, Austin, and Arwa. And please do download the report for more details, and we'll definitely be following the story of San Diego's smart city journey from here. So stay tuned. Thank you, everybody, and you'll receive the recording soon. Thank you for attending.